Hi, this is Bruce Buffer, your voice of the Octagon, and you're listening to MMA Mental.
We are now joined by UFC welterweight, who really should be fighting for the UFC title, but obviously we'll get into that. Johny Hendricks. How's things with you, Johnny?
I am doing wonderful. You?
Yeah, we're doing very well. We're obviously very pleased to get the opportunity to speak with yourself. Now, obviously, you're coming off your big win over Martin Kampmann at UFC 154, which didn't last very long. You obviously got your hands on him early, and now in a bit of a strange matchup, you're now fighting the guy who Kampmann beat, which is obviously Jake Ellenberger. How do you feel about facing Jake Ellenberger?
Well, I wish I wasn't. I wish I was fighting for the title, but fighting Jake Ellenberger is another tough matchup, just because he's a lot like the way that he's fighting now. I believe he's going to fight me a lot like GSP will try to. He's a wrestler. He's got heavy hands, so that's something that the only thing you don't have to worry about with GSP is heavy hands. You know what I'm saying? But this is going to be a good fight for me. It just gives me another chance to improve. Now that I know that I'm not getting this fight, I'm looking at it as a positive. And, since I did just knock out the guy that he got TKO'd by, it makes it harder on me. You know what I mean? Because if I go out there and I don't put on a good performance again, did I falter somewhere? Did I do this or this? Or what if, now he knows that if he can beat me, maybe that takes off his loss. You know what I'm saying? So it puts a little bit more pressure on me, but I like it.
Are you guaranteed a title shot with this win? If you beat Jake Ellenberger, are you guaranteed to get the next shot at the winner of GSP and Diaz?
I hope, you know what I mean? I really do. If I don't, I will be extremely, extremely, extremely surprised. You know what I mean? Just because of if it doesn't happen that way, then I won't know what to do to get the title shot.
You've literally cleaned out the division. I mean, your resume is a list of who's who. I mean, you've not faced anyone outside the top 10, I think, in your last, looking at your list, your last last four opponents have all been top 10 opponents. And obviously two of them you've knocked out in under a minute. One of them was under 20 seconds. What do you have to do to get a title shot?
Like I said, if that doesn't give me, if I don't get this win, and if I get this win and it doesn't give me a title shot, then man, there's nothing that will give me a title shot. You know what I mean? I might as well just say, all right, if this doesn't give me a title shot, I might as well retire and say it's just not meant to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because of there you go. The only person that has a better resume than I do at the 170 class, and he has the belt. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm trying to get to. And if he keeps me away from it, I guess I'll just have to fly to Canada and say, hey, can we do it now?
Oh God! So, are you feeling? Obviously, have you started? You've obviously started your training camp. How's your training going for Jake Ellenberger? How's your camp going?
Oh, it's going very well. I got Aaron Simpson out here right now, which is he's extremely, extremely tough. He's a very good guy. Not only that, but also we got Alan Belcher. He just came in for some reason to come into Dallas, and I'm actually going to get to train with him tonight and tomorrow. So people are starting to fly in, and I'm getting to start training with some very, very good guys, which is exciting for me. You know what I mean? To get to train with Aaron Simpson, who he was, he's another 170 pounder, strong guy. He dropped down from 185. Now, this weekend I get to train with Alan Belcher, and which that's going to be extremely exciting for me because, he is a big 185 pounder, and just to see how I do with those guys, I mean, it's always a thrill.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the better your training partners are, the better you're going to be as well, the better you're going to become. Just to go back a little bit then, obviously we know what's coming up with you next. I just wanted to get just to reflect a little bit on your UFC career so far and get some of your views on the fights we've seen. Now, I know you made your UFC debut going back to UFC 101 and you were brought in to face the Ultimate Fighter winner, Amir Sadola. And I think going into that fight, Amir was a favourite going into that fight. Did you feel you were brought in to lose that fight, and obviously you caused the upset, or did you feel that that was a pretty even match going in?
Well, I think that they did bring me in because, he beat TV Holloway, which is another strong wrestler. Nobody knew I had heavy hands. And I think that they thought that I was going to try to go in there and wrestle him down. You know what I mean? And he might submit me. That's what I thought. And that was my whole campaign, is they did bring in their own guy to face him. You know what I mean? And, I look back at it now, and, it's funny that, to see the kind of faces like that, and to see how, your first fight on pay-per-view, first fight ever in the UFC, and to come out with just your hand raised is a defeat in itself. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And then just to know that I knocked somebody out, that really boosted my confidence, because I didn't think I belonged there. I thought that I would need more fights to be at the UFC. I was thinking my goal was to get to 10-0 and then jump into the UFC. Certain things happened. And one thing I can say is that I'm very blessed, and I thank God for it, is that when big opportunities came my way, I was able to rise above. You know what I mean? I was able to get my hand raised. And it showed a couple of times in my career. Whenever that happened. So that was sort of the kickstart of, me being able to stay in the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about some of of the more difficult fights. You've obviously had a couple of really, really close fights that have gone split decision, obviously against two of the top guys in the division. With your UFC fights so far, which one for you has been your toughest opponent?
Well, there's been a couple. There's been more than just two. I know, for one, TJ Grant, he was a very tough, difficult fighter to fight against. You also got Mike Pierce, which, we were worried about that fight, because we were like, man, he's probably one of the toughest underrated fighters out there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so we're like, oh crap. We trained very hard for that one. And also, going into a 3-round decision, also Josh Koscheck. We knew that him switching to a new gym, also wanting to, make his title run again. I knew that we were going to get the best Josh Koscheck out there. And, that was a very, and those are the kinds that you learn so much from, though. You know what I mean? Like those kind of fights. Those grinders. You don't learn a lot in a minute. You don't learn a lot if you knock the guy out in the first round or even the third round sometimes. You know what I mean? Sometimes you can overlook that. But whenever you get in those grinding matches, you sit there and you go, well, what kept it? What made it a split decision? And you sit there and you start dissecting your game. Well, you watch the video and you go, what made it a 3-round decision or a split decision? And you start watching and you're like, oh man, what if I'd have done this? Would that have changed? Would I have done this? That would change. So then I say, okay, this is what we're going to start working on. You know what I mean? Yeah. And, just slowly develop that game to where you feel comfortable no matter what happens.
Moving on as well, I've got to talk about the John Fitch fight, just because it was such a career-defining moment, really. Because obviously, John Fitch has been, the number 2 guy at welterweight forever. I mean, he's looked dominant against everybody that's not named GSP. I think that's fair to say. And then he comes in against you, and I think a lot of people thought John Fitch was going to take you down and was going to grind you out the way he does. Did you even expect to finish the fight the way you did in that kind of fashion?
I knew that I could knock him out. You know what I mean? I knew that I had the power to do that. But what I didn't expect is it to be that quick. You know what I mean? There's a couple of things that John Fitch did that we sort of picked up on. We're like, oh man, I wonder if we could capitalize on these certain situations. And, well, I also knew that he was going to come out and try to establish throw his hands a couple times, and what he does is he throws his hands, and depending how you move, if he goes for a shot or not, right? And if you don't move the way that he wants you to, he'll back up. And whenever he backs up, he'll sit there and he'll bounce. And if you watch it, he'll do it a couple of times. Not too many people back away the way that he should, but they'll back away and they'll bounce. And he'll back up, he'll bounce for a couple seconds, and he'll wait for you to close the gap. As soon as you close the gap, that's when he's going to attack again. So what I figured is, I was like, all right, well, we know this, so how can we capitalize on that? So as soon as I felt him back up, I knew that I could close the distance very quickly. And so what I was going to do is, I was going to throw that punch just to get to his legs, because I wanted to show my wrestling off against John Fitch. So what happened was, whenever that punch landed, it sort of landed more firmly than I thought it would. And whenever he went down, that's whenever I was like, oh crap, I got to finish him.
That's brilliant. Well, I know my co-host Patrick needs to jump in, and he obviously got some questions for you. But before I pass you over, I'm just going to ask you one more question. You've obviously had some already career-defining moments, and we know there's going to be more from you in the future. Can you pick one moment so far in the UFC that is your favourite moment?
Man, you know what? And this might sound weird, is one of my favorite moments in the UFC was doing the press conference, or not the press conference, but the Q&A. You know what I mean? It wasn't very big. There was only probably 100, 200 people there. But that was my favorite moment in UFC. I don't want to pick a fighting moment yet, because I do that whenever I quit. Like in wrestling, whenever I wrestled, I did not pick. They're like, everybody asked me that, what's your favorite moment? I never had one until I retired. And as soon as I retired, I was like, okay, well, I like this, so that's the same way I want to do this. Is, man, I don't want to think about the past yet. I want to keep moving to the future. And really, hopefully, one day I will have that perfect fight. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just right now, I know that if I get caught up in the past too much, all hope stops. You know what I mean? You stop moving forward, you stop that. So right now, it's just like, hey, enjoy every moment.
Absolutely. Well, I know my co-host Ziggers jump in. Are you good to go, Patrick?
Yeah, I'm ready to go, Ray. And Johnny, thanks again for coming on. We really appreciate your time today.
Hey, thank you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So just real quick, yesterday was Valentine's Day. You do anything special for the missus or the girls?
Yeah, I got my wife a $500 gift card at her salon and a massage place. So she's this weekend or Monday, she's gonna go get a massage and get her hair done. It's
very cool.
I don't know what it's called, but that's what I did with them. My wife ordered my daughter some dresses, and so that's sort of our Valentine's Day.
Very nice. I want to go back in the past just a little bit. Your fight with Alexei Sergikov in the WEC, that was the last welterweight fight in WEC history. How nice is it to have that piece of history? And back then, did you imagine that you'd be where you are now in MMA?
No. Whenever I fought him, I had no idea. You know what I mean? I thought that it might be a fight for the UFC contract, right? But I did not expect it to end that way. You know what I mean? And whenever I fought him, that was sort of my first really, really, really big test. He's a big guy. He's fought a lot of fights, and I knew that I had to go out there and do the best I could.
Yeah, definitely. I remember that was, I think, your fifth pro fight, the one fight of the night, I believe, for the WEC, was the final WEC welterweight fight. And speaking about that, your third fight was for the XFL on HDNet, and then your fourth and fifth fights were in the WEC on Versus. Did that early TV exposure so early in your career, did that help in your transition to UFC at all?
What it helped me with is I knew WEC was tough. I mean, that's like sort of the gateway to the UFC,
Right.
And I knew that if I could do good there, I was ready for the next step. So whenever I only had 2 fights, I was wishing, again, I thought I'd have more there, but, certain circumstances shut it short. But I knew after the Alex Sergeyevich fight, I was ready to make the next jump, and the next jump was to start fighting, into the UFC. And whenever you sit there and you fight these guys, every fight's tough. But what it does is the more you get in there, the less nervous you get, the more exciting things are. That's one thing that I saw myself is whenever I got into the WEC, my first fight, I was a little nervous. I was like, oh man, this is a bigger show. How am I going to perform in it? More people know about the WEC. And then the first fight happened and you're like, oh man, okay. You just got to get relaxed. And then the second fight, I was like, okay, I got even more relaxed. And so far, every fight I get, I'm more excited to get into the octagon than I am anything else.
Awesome. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that can only come with experience, I'd imagine. Now, going forward a little bit, when you fought Rick Story, you were both on 4-fight win streaks in the UFC. You lost it was a very close fight, but you really came back better than ever since, as we've seen in your last 5 fights or so. What adjustments did you make following that lone career loss?
A lot. A lot. For one, the way that we did our training camps. I was like, Mark, we got complacent. We got satisfied for where we were at. So we intensified all of our training camps. That's one thing. Another thing is we started using Oklahoma State more. The wrestling program there. We really pushed that a lot harder. And then not only that, but also bringing out partners. That was another big thing we made an adjustment to. And also, we worried so much what Rick Story was going to do. We knew how he was going to fight. We knew it to a T. And what we did is we game planned the way that I fought that fight. That was our game plan to a T. Let him try to throw his punches to the cage, block, get off the cage, throw a punch. Don't let him just sit there and constantly bully you to the cage. Well, that's what happened. And so that was something that we, that I put my foot down and said, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to watch video, but we're not going to game plan everything to what he does. You know what I'm saying? So what we're going to do is we're going to see what he does. We're going to discuss what he does. But what we're going to do is we're going to capitalize on how we can defeat that. You see what I'm saying? Okay.
Definitely. Well, those approaches have certainly been paying dividends, like we've seen. Now, I saw a video of you training for your fight with Josh Koscheck, and your workout was crazy. You want to tell us a little bit about what a common workout is for you and what your training is like with Team Takedown these days?
Well, it just depends what day, but right now it's every day starts at noon. I do a 2-hour workout. And what happens is we'll go in there, we'll do some, if it's Monday, we'll split it up. And what we'll do is we'll do an hour jiu-jitsu, and then towards the end we'll roll live, do 2 rounds live, and then we'll do striking for an hour, and then we'll learn some situations, and then we'll go like play sparring, 20%, but we'll work on what we went over that day. And then we go straight into conditioning right after that. So, usually by 2:30, 3 o'clock, I'm done. I get home. I spend some time with the wife, kids. And then at, let's see here, 8 o'clock, I'll get back to the gym. We'll either review a little bit of technique, and then we go 6 to 8 rounds live. And what happens is there's always a new guy rotating on me every 5 minutes.
Wow. That's pretty intense.
Well, they sort of have to be now. You know what I mean? The more that I think about it and the more time I'm getting into this is that my goal is to be doing a 25-minute round. You know what I mean? Fight. And that's what I'm training to right now. And so every camp, I'm training like I'm fighting for a 5-round fight. And what happens is, in the last 2 fights, I've learned what we should do and what we shouldn't do. You know what I mean? Before I even had the 5-minute or 5-round fight. So it's actually been a blessing to intensify everything a little bit more.
Wow. Well, that's definitely showing through. I mean, God, some of the workouts and stuff I've seen you do in your fights in the cage, the few that have gone the distance, it definitely seems like you've got all the gas in the world. Now, you were on Inside MMA a couple months ago. You were expressing your displeasure with GSP fighting Diaz. Then there was the comments about him thinking Diaz is a true number 1 contender, which we know you took issue with. Are you using all that as extra motivation when you take on Jake Ellenberger in March?
Oh yeah. That's GSP did the worst thing he could do. He lit a fire under me that he's not going to be able to put out. You know what I mean? I'm training even harder than I have been for any of my other fights. For him to say that, and to hear how he told everybody that Carlos Condit was the number 1 contender, that he did beat Nick Diaz, and for him to say that, you know what I mean? It's like, wow. You know what I mean? Okay, if that's the way you want to play it, well, let's play it that way. You know what I mean? I'll go out there, good Lord willing, I'll prove that I am still the number 1 contender, and I'm going to do everything I can to take that belt from him.
Well, I know we're all hoping that you get into a position to get that fight. You got to get through Jake Ellenberger first, though. As we all know, that's at UFC 158. You mentioned earlier, Jake, he's a strong welterweight, good wrestling, big power in the hands, much like yourself. Where do you see yourself holding the advantage in this fight?
I believe everywhere. You know what I mean? That's just the way that I like to think. I believe that my striking is better than his. You know what I mean? My power, obviously, is better than his. You know what I mean? He rocked Cameron, but I was able to put him out. You know what I'm saying? So that's a confidence builder in me. Not only that, but I think my speed's there. Just pretty much everywhere that I can think of right now, I believe I'm better. And if you ask Jake Ellenberger, he's probably going to say the exact same thing. You know what I mean? Because I believe that if you give up anything before then, you're already beat. You know what I'm saying? So if I go in there and say, I think he's better here and here and here, then whenever you step out there, you're going to believe that. You know what I mean? And you're not going to fight to your full potential. So what I like to do is I like to say, no, like whenever I fought Campman, everybody said, oh man, he's a good striker. I'm like, no, I don't think he's better than me. You know what I'm saying? Just because I don't want to give up that. I don't want to give up anything to anybody. You know what I'm saying? I want everybody to think, man, this guy doesn't care. I don't care what he's good at. I don't care what anything. Whatever he's good at, I want to try to beat him at that.
Hey, and that's a true champion's mentality right there. Definitely the right frame of mind you want to have going into a fight with anybody. And you kind of touched on it a little bit. You and Jake have had some common opponents. Both had dropped decisions to Rick Story, but you knocked out Martin Kampman in 46 seconds, whereas even though Ellenberger rocked Kampman, he ultimately ended up getting knocked out by Martin Kampman in the second round. So as a mixed martial artist, do you ever look at things like that going into a fight?
No. You know what I mean? And the reason why is because everything's going to be totally different. You know what I mean? I'm southpaw. He was fighting orthodox. So that right there throws a little bit of curveball to Jake Ellenberger. Also, you know, I know that now, you know, now that I've knocked out my second guy under a minute, you think anybody's going to want to stand there and trade? You know what I mean? Even if they do have a good chin, I doubt they're going to want to stand there and trade. So, you know, that's something that I'm playing into my factor as well. All right. Well, if I had to beat myself, how would I beat myself? You know, and that's something that I like to start off every camp with. Doesn't matter who we're fighting. It it's the best way to get yourself prepared for wherever it goes. So if I know I want to fight myself, I want to stay away from the left hand. I'm going to try to push him to the cage. I'm going to try to take him down. Because nobody's really seen my jiu-jitsu, and nobody's really seen my wrestling. So those are things that I want to try to exploit. Does he have it still? Does he not? So I know this. So if I know this, I know my opponents know this. So that's something that's easy fixable. You know, very easy to fix.
Definitely. Now, tomorrow we got the big UFC on Fuel 7 card in England. Are you going to be watching the fights tomorrow? And if so, are there any ones you're particularly interested in?
Yeah, I will be watching it. I forget, man, they all start to run together. You know, I forget who's fighting on this card. I know Dan Henderson's fighting on this card. I always like watching him. Who is he fighting?
Yeah, that's next weekend. Yeah, he's taking on Machida.
Oh.
Yeah, this
okay,
weekend
who's this weekend?
Yeah, Henan Burrell and Michael McDonald for the bantamweight interim belt, and
Dude, I love watching those little guys fight. Man, they're like a little ball of fire. You know what I mean? I always like watching those little guys fight. Man, they're so fast and they're so they're like they can sit there and they can move and get hit and kick. You know what I mean? They're like they're Machida, but they're Clay Guida, but on steroids, like a little bit more hyper. You know what I mean? Those guys, I mean, they do everything. So I definitely love watching the Bantam and the featherweights? The 130, 133, right?
Yeah. Tomorrow's the bantamweight 135-pound title fight.
Yeah. So that's all. Yeah. So I'm pretty excited about that. I forgot about that one because Mark was telling me just today. He was like, "There's going to be UFC on tomorrow." I was like, "That's going to be the Dan Henderson." He's like, "No." I was like, "Oh man, who's going to be fighting on?" So I was actually going to come home and see who was on that card, but me and my wife, we had to find out we're having another baby, so I got to find out.
Congratulations!
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, hey, that kind of leads into my next question. I was just going to ask, we know about you as a wrestler, one of the more accomplished wrestlers in Division I wrestling. We know about you as a mixed martial artist, but is there something people may not know that you want to share about Johny Hendricks, the father and the husband?
That's it, that's pretty much all I am. Outside of this house, I'm a fighter. But once I get home, I'm only a dad. You know what I mean? I'm only a dad. And right now, like I said, I am having another child, and it looks like it's going to be a girl. So now I'm definitely outnumbered, 4 to 1. So I guess my votes start counting as 5. But man, that's about it. There's nothing more exciting than like I let my daughters go train or go watch me train. I think that's good motivation. Not only for me, but just also to let them see what their dad do. Their dad does. Excuse me, their dad do. What their dad does. And also just to, there's nothing more exciting if I'm sitting there doing something and I'm feeling tired and I look over and I see my daughter right there. I'm like, whoa, that's why I'm fighting. That's when I got to push myself that much harder. And, that really, if that doesn't get you motivated, I don't know what will.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And, I know that's why the fans love Johny Hendricks. You're brutal inside the cage and definitely a humble guy. Very cool to talk to outside of the cage. And before we let you go, we just want to thank you again for your time. We really appreciate it. And, please feel free to go ahead and, shout out any sponsors or your team or, let people know how they can follow you on Facebook and Twitter.
Facebook and Twitter is Johny Hendricks. It's at Facebook, on Facebook or at Twitter, Johny Hendricks. And Johnny spelled with one N, N-Y. My sponsors, of course, Echo, Bass Pro, KO Reps, Wild Wings. Those guys right there have been awesome to me. Also, you guys have really made it, a joy too, is that, just doing interviews, like you said, letting people get to know who we are. That's been a huge blessing, because now we're not only looked as fighters, we're looked as people, you know what I mean? And I think that's really what has separated our sport from anything else, and so you guys getting our names out there, getting us the publicity that that gives us a good name. That's what makes it exciting.
Well, it's been a real pleasure today, Johnny. We really appreciate you coming on. We were both so excited when we got the interview booked with the opportunity to speak with yourself. So thank you very much for your time today.
Hey, thank you guys. Y'all have a wonderful evening, okay?